Hi, this is Valerie Leonard again. I wanted to say thank you again for joining us today. We're doing a very special session. We're going to be focusing on the census. As you know, there has been significant confusion over the deadline for filing the census. When we thought about doing this yesterday, we thought that the deadline was on Monday. So we were scrambling, trying to make sure that we could remind everybody that we knew to make sure that they reminded their friends and family to, in fact, complete the census form. We have since learned that the real date has been restored, and that deadline is October 31st. But even so, October 31st is right around the corner, and there are still a number of people that need to be counted. So I wanted to share with you some updates as well as give you a review of the presentation that we shared before the census started. All right. Okay. So without further ado, if you can just hold on just one moment. I want to reshare my screen. Alrighty, so we're going to be talking about why you should be so concerned about the census. So we're going to share with you an overview of the census. We're going to let you know what's at stake, how nonprofits and community members can get involved, and strategies that you can use for financing your activities. Even though I can definitely say 3 weeks is not much time for you to raise funds, pretty much this is for people who are already working in this industry, right? So, in terms of status, we know that the census day was April 1st, 2020. And we also know that enumerators, or those people who actually do the count for the census, they've been out in the field to follow up with those who have not responded. And they are essentially done counting households. And, the operative word here is households. President Trump called for an end to the status taking process as of September 20, I'm sorry, as of end of September 30th, 2020, and a group of civil rights advocates sued and the court sided with the advocates. We also know that the Trump administration indicated that the last day for census taking would be October 5th in spite of the court order. So a lot of people were scrambling. The judge threatened to hold the Trump administration in contempt of court. And as of yesterday, October 2nd, census enumerators have received a memo indicating that they will be out in the field taking count until October 31st as originally planned. At issue are the strong likelihood of inaccurate counts given the several disruptions and the fact that the hard to count population still have not all been accounted for. As I indicated before, they're essentially done counting households. All right, I got this email from the Census Bureau yesterday. And according to the Census Bureau, 99% of housing units have been accounted for. 32.5% were counted by census takers, and that's consistent with what happened 10 years ago. And 66% of housing units are responding online, by phone, or by mail. All right, so here is a screenshot of what I got in the mail. And you can see here also that I could check and see the total response rates for myself. All right, so knowing me, I went and I clicked on that button and I wanted to see how we were doing. Yeah, I wanted to know how the state of Illinois was doing. I wanted to know how Cook County was doing. And I wanted to know how Chicago was doing. And all of this in terms of rank. And as you can see from this screenshot, Illinois ranks 24th in the nation with respect to enumeration. And when I say enumeration, again, that is considering the count. That is what's been enumerated by the staff from census as well as those that are self-reported. So they're saying that 99.7% of the households have been counted. Percent. And Cook County ranks 72 in the state with respect to self-responded, with 66.9% self-responding. And Chicago ranks 1,044 out of 1,298 cities in the state, with 60.3% self-reported. So that gives you a good sense for where we are in terms of actual reports compared to the state and the country. So as you see here, the national response rate, they have about 98.5 million households responding, and the total enumerated was 99.3%. So that takes into account those who were self-responded, so that's about 2/3, and the remaining 1/3 were counted by staff, census staff. So what's the problem? These numbers do not include the homeless. They don't include transient persons or other hard to count populations for the most part, at least not to the extent that they could be. Again, they said households. All right. So I just want to step back and give you a sense for what the census is. As you may remember from your 8th grade history lesson studying from the Constitution, the census is a federally, constitutionally mandated process, right? And it was originally set up to determine what our representation would be in our federal government, particularly at the congressional level. So why is the census so important? You know, we have a tendency to think that the data are only used to determine legislative seats. However, that's just a small part, and I don't even want to minimize how important that is, especially in this current environment. So there's no small part, right? The census is extremely important, and it's probably never been more important than it is today. Census participation and results also determine the amount of federal money states receive each year. And this money is spent on things like infrastructure needs, such as road construction and repair, school and school districts in our communities, Medicaid and Medicare, hospitals and emergency healthcare centers, affordable housing, how much money goes for people with AIDS, how much money goes in for community development, how much money goes for social services such as tending to our elderly, veterans programs, and other entitlement programs. So not only should nonprofits care, but you should care. But nonprofits in particular should care because accurate data helps nonprofits to develop programs and services that are responsive to the community. So how do they do that? That's based on accurate counts of population, accurate counts and description of housing stock, accurate counts and descriptions of the number of businesses, and the list goes on. Accurate data also ensures that there are sufficient resources and funding so that nonprofits can provide programs and services. Again, those numbers help them to really pinpoint how many people they actually need to serve, and then they know how much money to ask for their funders, in addition to from the federal government. And clients in the community, and I would count yourself and myself as clients of nonprofits, and we get the services and assistance that we need. As small business owners, we get to access the services that we need. So there are a number of benefits to nonprofits participating in census mobilization efforts. And those mobilization efforts, quite honestly, started about a year ago and they're coming to a close. But that effort has been very good in terms of increasing capacity for civic engagement, strengthen relationships with the communities that they serve, opportunities to keep their fingers on the pulse of issues impacting the local constituency. And as it relates to other programs and services, they can tweak those programs and services and make them even more relevant. And then the identification of potential partners and allies in future programming and collaboration. And another byproduct is it creates a situation where you have an apparatus in place to do voters registration, get out the vote, check on people with COVID-19, check on our students, and a number of other needs that have arisen as it relates to COVID-19 and the fact that this is an election year. So as you're aware, there are some groups that are historically undercounted, and these are the people that we're concerned about. As the census indicated, they have already accounted for 99.8% or so of the population in terms of the households, but they probably don't have as clear a picture of what goes on with the historically undercounted. And that includes people like veterans, minority communities, college students, foreign-born residents, and that could include documented immigrants as well as undocumented immigrants. Retirees spending summer in Illinois, summer in Illinois and winter in other states. Farm families that reside in rural areas. Persons living in large housing units or apartment complexes, children under 5, the homeless, the aged, and even ex-offenders. Groups that are typically overcounted, that includes non-Hispanic whites, homeowners, and these are people who are overcounted, not undercounted. College students living away from home, older people, and even suburban people. And I would venture to say that in the state of Illinois, people who live in towns that are supported primarily by prisons. As we know, a significant population of the prisoners come from places in Chicago, right? So if you're from Chicago and you're in prison the day that you are counted, then the funds that come from your being counted go to that prison community and not here in the city of Chicago. And as a result of that, the populations in the prison cities are over counted, and the counts in cities like Chicago are typically undercounted. So as you know, there's a very, very high cost associated with being undercounted. In fact, back in 2010, the cost was $9.52 per person. So for every person who was not counted, the state lost 952 people. In 2015, the state of Illinois lost 122 million for every 1% of the population not counted. And that's according to the Illinois Complete Count Commission. And Illinois is not the only state, right? 37 out of 50 states lost money due to undercounts. And this includes Washington state losing 2.6 million, and the state of Texas lost $292 million last time around. So what about Chicago? So in Chicago, in 2010, about 34% of our households didn't complete the questionnaire, and the census had to follow up to make sure that they did a count, and if they couldn't do an actual count, they actually made an estimate. And approximately 48% of Chicago's population lives in those hard to count neighborhoods. So in this map, those darker areas that you see, the darker the area, the more people they have who are hard to count. And as you can see, the concentration is in those African American neighborhoods as well as in Latino neighborhoods. So in Chicago, about 425,000 undocumented immigrants lived in the city. And again, undocumented immigrants are not the only ones who are hard to reach. And there are a number of minority groups and ex-offenders and other groups that are also hard to count. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot at stake. We need to make sure that we have an accurate count. So not only do we get our money, right? Because in 2015, we received $19.7 billion or $1,535 per person in federal assistance to 16 programs. And if we're counting correctly, that number is expected to increase this time around. So the failure to count every Illinois resident would have devastating effects on Illinois' ability to meet the needs of our residents. And as we know, in the age of COVID-19, the needs are probably greater now, and we have lower numbers of people, which means that we run the risk of losing resources to be able to cover greater needs than we had just 10 years ago. So even a 1% undercount would result in the state losing $19.5 million a year for a decade, resulting in a total loss of $195 million, $574,350. So just as important, especially in this current environment, is the fact that the census is used for apportionment. And when we talk about apportionment, we're talking about making sure that every state is represented proportionate to the number of people who actually live in that state. And for the past 2 or 3 census cycles, the state of Illinois has lost population. And in fact, we're at risk of losing yet another seat as a result. So for the past 3 years, we have lost numbers. For the last 3 census, we have lost representation in Congress. And at the rate we're going to lose another seat. So whatever you can do, make sure you reach out to people that might be moving around. Make sure you reach out to people who might not necessarily be as civically engaged to make sure that they have in fact completed their census form. The last day to respond to the census is October 31st, 2020. And the most important thing for you to do is to remember to reach out to family and friends. And if you really want to get involved, connect with the local Complete Count Committee and assist as needed. I've been told that Habilitative Systems on Chicago's West Side is leading that effort. Also, my church, Caritas Centenary, is also leading another effort in the North Lawndale area. I believe the HSI effort reaches several communities on the West Side as well. So again, reach out to as many people, post on social media, just remind people that they need to complete the census. And these are not necessarily people who are living in households, but reach out to people that who might be considered part of that hard to reach count. All right. So you can respond a number of ways, or they can respond a number of ways. They can respond online. They can respond by phone. They can respond by mail. And again, they can make sure that they get in contact with their complete count committees. And every state has a complete count committee to make sure that there's coordination statewide to reach out to people and make sure people who are hard to reach, in fact, get counted. And the state of Illinois has such a committee. And if you want to find your local complete count committee, so when we talk about complete count committees, we're talking about committees that are comprised of a mix of elected officials as well as people on the ground. You can go to census.gov to find a complete count committee near you, and you can roll up your sleeves and help them reach out to the hard to reach people. In the state of Illinois, we've got an Illinois Complete Count Commission, and this is the front page of that website. As you can see, they've got resources, including a 2020 final report to the General Assembly. They've got their meeting agenda and minutes, and a number of those meetings obviously had to be canceled due to coronavirus. And then they have a number of publications. And even though we're wrapping up the census for now, I think it's really, really important to review what went on, review all of the brochures so that in the next cycle that we're better prepared. And here is a page that talks about the subcommittees and local complete count committees. All right, so I'm going to open it up for questions. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post in the comments section. If you want to get in touch with me afterwards, you can email me at ValerieFLeonard@nonprofitutopia.com. And be sure to follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. And I thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. Alrighty, so I see that there are 3 comments. Okay, and this comment is from Leslie Page Piper. She says, nonprofit orgs and governments can also document with census data the need for federal funds to assist businesses that are marginally profitable, serving low and moderate communities, and are hiring people in low to moderate income communities. Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to remind people, that Leslie is an expert with census data. She used to work for the Cook County in their Department of Community Development. So she knows from whence she speaks. So thank you so much. And Leslie is an engaged member of the Nonprofit Utopia community. All right. You're quite welcome, Leslie, and thank you for being an engaged member and for participating. And then she indicates that she's going to be looking in her area to find a complete count committee. All righty. So if there are any other questions or comments, please post them now. If there are none, then I will turn this off now. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. And please, by all means, go and encourage people that you know who might not be engaged to participate. Take care. Bye-bye.